All right. Hey everyone, Mark Edward Willows here. Welcome once again to Gabbin Cabin. And I have to tell you, I am thrilled about today's show because I have an icon as a guest today. And he is from one of the most iconic shows that has ever been on television, Happy Days. And I would be shocked if someone never heard of that program. And Ralph is here himself, Mr. Don Most. Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
I have to tell you, Don, I grew up watching Happy Days, love the show, don't think I have ever missed an episode, never thought I'd be speaking with you, and you did that show. So tell us, what was it like to be a part of Happy Days?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. You know, how long do you have? It was amazing. I mean, the cast that they assembled was fantastic, obviously, and the chemistry that we all had amongst ourselves. That's something you can't plan on or work at. It either is or it isn't. And so you have to give the producers, Gary Marshall and the other executive producers, a lot of credit for assembling this team, and then having somebody like Gary at the helm, and our director Jerry Paris, who is a brilliant director and a wonderful guy. That all really contributed in a big way to the success of the show. And we respected each other very much professionally. We got along like family, and we took the work pretty serious. Even though we had a very good time, but we took the work pretty seriously. Which I think it was easy to dismiss our show in the beginning as a bunch of teenagers goofing off, having a good time, but that wasn't the case. We were very serious about the work.
And the show ran for what, 6 seasons, right? Or 8?
Oh no,
eight.
No, it ran 11 seasons.
11. Oh my God, I'm off on that one. Wow.
And I did the first 7 seasons,
mm-hmm.
and then my contract was up, and I, for several different reasons, opted not to renew. Same year that Ron Howard left the show. He and I left after the 7th season, but then everyone else continued for 4 more.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we will all totally agree, the ensemble was fabulous. The casting was just there for that show. How did you get picked for the part of Ralph? Was it the regular audition, or how did it come about?
Oh yeah. I'd been out. I grew up in New York, and I'd been pursuing, I started going to a school in New York City for singing, acting, and dancing, starting when I was around 13. And then I did some work in New York over the years, a lot of commercials from the time I was 16 through 20, while I was in high school and college, and some small TV stuff, but there wasn't a lot of television being done in New York then, except for soap operas, and then of course Broadway. But most of the TV and film was being done in LA. So I went out there for the summer after my junior year in college, and I started landing some roles, and I decided to stay a little bit longer and take 6 months off of school and see what happens. And I landed a few more parts, and then I heard from my agent, there's a new show, there's an audition for you for a pilot for a show about the 50s, and called Happy Days. So I went in and met with 2 of the executive producers. Then I had to come back and read again, this time for Gary Marshall and about 10 other people in a room. And then they called me back again for a screen test. And that was the process.
Wow, what a story. Now, when you were doing it, did any of you ever think this is where it would be today? I mean, it's an institution today. It's on TV every day. I mean, did you think this show would go in that direction when you started it?
It's been probably impossible to predict that. But what I can say is that even during the pilot, I had really good feelings. I remember calling, because I was watching, even I might have been in a scene, and then they might say you're done for the day, but I would stick around all day. I wanted to watch, everybody, because, we had Ron Howard in the cast, who I'd been watching since I was a kid, on the Music Man movie, Andy Griffith show.
Oh, little Opie, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we had Ron, Tom Bosley, who I knew of, he'd won the Tony on Broadway for Fiorello and had done a lot of movies. And then I got to meet, I met Henry Winkler and the rest of the cast. And I just felt there was something really, I mean, I was only 20. I didn't have the experience, but my gut was telling me there was something really cool happening. And I remember after watching every day of the shooting of the pilot, I called my parents and I said, I think this has a really good chance. No, what I was talking about is of selling, because they made 95% of the pilots they would make don't get on the air.
Right.
So it's only a small minority of the shows that would get on. But I said, I think this has a good chance. I feel really good about this show. And I'm sure they thought I was having wishful thinking. But looking back, I think my instincts were right. I didn't know that it would become, the iconic show that it did, and with the longevity. But I knew that we had a great group of people, and that something magical was happening. That's what I felt.
Yeah. What was it like working with Marion Ross and Tom Bosley, Mr. and Mrs. C? I mean, they were kind of veterans in the business already when Happy Days started. So what was it like? You walked in at 20 years old, and oh my God, you're in front of Tom Bosley. What was that like for you?
It was a thrill. I mean, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I would, my scenes would be done, and then I saw that they were going to be shooting scenes with the family, Mr. and Mrs. C, Tom and Marion, Ron and Erin Moran. And I would stick around and watch every one of those scenes. And I remember Tom would look over at me and he'd say, this is even after we were starting to shoot the series, I would still do that, and he'd say, what are you doing? You're done. Why don't you go home? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I just wanted to soak it all in, because
just love it there.
Yeah, I wanted to take it all in, because what a training ground, what a great, learning experience it was. And I was grateful and wanted us to be there for every second of it.
Mm-hmm. What's some of your fondest memories from the show?
Probably, the collaborative aspect of it, and a lot of the conversations that we would have in between, the rehearsals and the work itself, because it was so exhilarating and exciting. But then a lot of all the great conversations, in between the scenes, and also the times working with the writers and Jerry and Gary, when we would have notes with the writers after a run through. And it was a very, like I said earlier, fervent, collaborative kind of environment. So those are some of my best memories.
Do you think the setting, Milwaukee, had anything to do with the success of the show? Because Gary, for some reason, loved Milwaukee. Your show, Laverne and Shirley, Milwaukee seemed to be the city.
Well, yeah, and that probably wasn't really Gary. The truth of the matter is, one of the other executive producers named Tom Miller, he was from Milwaukee.
Oh.
And so I think it was his suggestion that they place the show in Milwaukee, so that it wasn't maybe so, Gary was from the Bronx in New York, and maybe they felt, well, that could be good, but maybe let's place it in sort of, middle America, Milwaukee, the great American town. And so that was Tom Miller's influence. And then once that had been established, when they did a spinoff of Laverne and Shirley, well, of course, that then had to take place in Milwaukee as well.
Have you ever heard from the city of Milwaukee what their reaction was about the show?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's see, what year was it? Sometime in early 2007, was it? They had a big event there, a 3-day event, where they dedicated a bronze statue of.
I was just going to say, bronze statue in Milwaukee would be great.
The way they bronzed the Fonz. They put a statue of Henry as the Fonz in there, sort of on the water. There was a water park, a waterfront park downtown, and we all were there for the unveiling. And then there was all these festivities over the weekend, parade, and then going to Milwaukee Brewers game at the stadium where Henry threw out the first ball and we were all there. So it was a big deal. So Milwaukee was very welcoming as
And
it could be.
I love that, the fans and bronze.
Yeah, they bronzed the fawns.
Yes. Now, let me ask you, the show, of course, has been off the air for years. How about when you go places today? Is it, hey, Ralph? Is that what people still call you?
I get that sometimes, but not as much as I used to, back in the day. Now,
Right.
they generally call me more by my actual name, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, it's great. People still will recognize me and from the show, but I've been doing so many other things, in the last 20, 30 years, especially in the last 10 years, that it's really switched. There's kind of been a switch where people certainly remember me from the show, but they're also wanting to know about all these other projects, about the projects I've been doing, the music I've been doing, because I have a CD out and I'm working on another one that.
Yes, which we are going to talk about. And as long as you brought it up, we'll talk now. I mean, I heard you singing Ooh Baby Baby, and I have to tell you, it was wonderful. I mean, you've actually correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been sort of, music was your dream. You were more into music before acting even, correct?
That's true. Very good. Yes. Before I was really pursuing acting, I was pursuing music more as my sort of dream job or whatever. And I wound up doing it when I was 15 years old. I landed a role, or whatever you want to call it. I got to be part of this nightclub act that was comprised of teenagers, 14 to 16. There were 7 of us, and we had a nightclub review. And I was in that, and we performed up in the Catskill Mountains this summer that I was turning 15, and all the hotels up there and the nightclubs, they had nightclubs. So I was singing, and that's what I was really thinking about doing. I loved, the Great American Songbook and the jazz standards.
And you have a fantastic voice. When I listen, I mean, I was shocked. It is beautiful. I mean, yeah, you do great. Now, this CD, where could this be available if anybody is interested? Is this
Sure.
Online?
Well, now, Ooh Baby that you mentioned, that's from the new CD that isn't even finished yet because we had to stop with the COVID pandemic. We were about 3/4 of the way done and we had to stop. That hopefully will be out this summer. But the CD I did 3 years ago is called Mostly Swinging. And that's with a great big band and a lot of the great jazz standards. You can get that on iTunes or Amazon, called Mostly Swinging. The new one, Ooh Baby, the single we just released in the UK, but it's on iTunes. I think it's on iTunes and Amazon if people want, even though it hasn't been officially released. And that, of course, was a great Smokey Robinson song back in the 60s, but we did a little different take on it and it came out really nice. And
oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love the whole setting and you dressed up and the mic really makes you feel like I was out for the evening.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
you did excellent. Now, also, Don, you brought up the pandemic, and I know that's really created a lot of havoc in the entertainment industry. Besides the song, how has that affected you in any way? Have you been quarantined at home? Is that where you're coming up with all your brilliant ideas, what to do or what?
A little of both, I guess. Yeah, I've been pretty much, locked down. I mean, I go out to the store, for food and go to the drugstore, but not too much else. Although now I'm vaccinated, so it's going to be opening up more and more. Yeah, it was hard. I did a couple of there's this one TV series I did that everyone did from home. It was called Viral Vignettes, and it's on YouTube. You could, if you look up Viral Vignettes.
Viral Vignettes.
And Don Most, I did 2 episodes of that as an actor and 2 as a director, and they're really fun. You'd know most of the people in them. Each one is usually a 2-character piece. It's about 10 minutes, and they're just really fun. So that was something we were able to do from our own homes. So that it was a way of being productive and doing something creative with the limitations that we were up against.
Mhm.
I also did a short film, which is going to be coming out. I shot that in November, and I flew, even though it was a little risky. I flew to Philadelphia to shoot it. It's a short film called When George Got Murdered, which is very timely, obviously. And that should be coming out in the next month or two. And then I have a movie that's on Amazon Prime now, but I actually shot that over a year ago, but it came out a few months ago. It's called Lost Heart, and it's on Amazon Prime. And so, and I'm getting ready to do a film in Europe, and I'm leaving next month to go to Prague to do a film. So, hopefully it's all starting to open up now, and then I'll be doing more of the personal, singing appearances in, theaters and clubs, and finish the CD, and hopefully a lot more TV and film.
Yeah. And Don, you seem like you are a very creative man from talking with you. Do you think that has helped all of your success, or do you think it's been hanging around Gary Marshall so long? Or because you sound very creative. What's your thought on that?
Well, it's probably both. I mean, yeah, I think that that part of the creative aspect is something that I think is in me, and I felt from a very early age. I mean, I was 9 years old when I really got the bug. And so, yes, that creative side of my brain, I think is pretty active. But yes, being exposed to a lot of great talent like Gary Marshall and Jerry Paris and the rest of the cast. And then the first movie I got to be in was a movie called Crazy Mama, which was directed by Jonathan Demme, who wound up winning Academy Awards later on for, he directed Philadelphia and Silence of the Lambs and a lot of other great films. So I was exposed, I had the opportunity to work with some wonderful people, and you learn a lot. And then with that creative side of you, it's like an alchemy, it all comes together, and then you'll see what comes out.
Exactly, exactly. Now, getting back to Happy Days, one question I do want to ask, because everybody asks this, what was the day like on the set of Happy Days? I mean, just take me through the week, Monday through Friday. I mean, was it a 16-hour day? What was this?
Well, it changed. In the first two seasons, we were a one camera show, meaning shot like a movie, no audience. So, we would shoot a show in, average about 4 days. And scenes are out of order, depending, it's all based on the economics of how to shoot it. So
Right.
you're on the Arnold set, then you might be in the Cunningham living room set, then you might be, in a Jefferson High high school set, or it could be in Richie's room. So it was shot like a movie, and we would be shooting, call times could be as early as 6 in the morning, and it could be 12, 14-hour days. Now that's for the crew. My character, I might only be in one or two scenes that day, and maybe I'd be done early, or maybe I'd come in later. And Ron and Hanson in the beginning, they were in so many scenes, they would have the really long days. I started to get that more and more as my part got bigger into the middle of the first season and then into the second season. But that's how we would shoot. There were 12, 14-hour days. But then when we switched to a 3-camera format in the third season, which means we shot in front of an audience, we'd come in on a Monday and do a table read of the script with all the actors, the writers, the producers, and director. And then after that, the writers would, have their own notes and go and do some rewriting. And then we'd come in the next day and start rehearsing. But it would be like, 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock rehearsing, blocking the scenes and going through them. Same thing on Wednesday. And then we'd have a run through for the writers. And then maybe Gary would be there. And then we would have discussion with the writers, have about some of the problems, some of the things that we could make better. Then they'd rewrite again, and then we'd come in Thursday and then block it with the cameras and rehearse and do a run through at the end of that day. That'd be a longer day. pretty
Mhm.
long day. And then have notes and then come back Friday, maybe 11 o'clock, kind of late in the morning, because then we'd be doing a whole run through again with the cameras, and then a dress rehearsal in front of an audience, then go for dinner, and then shoot the show in front of an audience in the evening. So,
Wow,
so
interesting.
that would be the pattern.
Yes. How close are you with the cast today?
Well, I just left. I just had lunch with Anson Williams.
Oh,
I drove home and I see Anson and speak to him all the time. You know, we're best friends.
mhm,
Henry and Ron, we stay in touch, but I don't see them as often. They're all over. It's hard,
mhm,
but we stay in touch, and Marion as well. So it's great. It was kind of like family. It was like
mhm,
family. It definitely was, and
mhm.
we still have that.
Yes. And I need to ask you finally, Don, what's your future? Where's it going? I mean, you're doing so many things. We're going to see you maybe on the big screen coming up. It's going to be the hit
Yeah.
song. Where is Don Most going?
Well, good question. I'm hoping there's a couple of I'm doing this film, like I said, in Europe in a few weeks. Looks like I'm doing a Lifetime movie as well, and then I have several of my own projects that I'm very excited about. Some scripts that I've developed, some that I would direct because I've directed 3 independent films in the past. So I
Mhm.
have 2 or 3 other ones that I'm trying to get going. So hopefully I'll be directing in some of those, and then acting in more TV and film, and then the music. I'm going to finish the CD and get that out and start touring. There's talk about not only touring back in the U.S. but maybe touring in Italy and the UK. So I'm open. I
Looks like
just
you
want
will
to.
have a full plate.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm ready for it.
Yes, and I need to ask you behind you over there. I see Marilyn Monroe. Looks
Yeah.
like some interesting pictures. Can you tell us a little something about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's in my office. There was a. I was somewhere. I can't remember. It was. There was an art gallery, and I saw this, this, this painting, sketch, print, whatever of Marilyn. I loved it, and
Mhm.
I even when I was always a fan of hers, and so I wanted that. And then above it, which is might be hard to see, yeah, there's Sinatra. That's
Ah,
Frank up there.
ah,
Leroy. I think it's a Leroy Neiman painting of Frank. And
ah.
Frank was certainly a big influence on me on my music. Um, Frank and Dino and Bobby Darin and Nat King Cole.
Oh,
So,
yes. I'm actually good friends with Tom Dreesen, and
oh,
Tom tells me all the stories about Frank and what
I
he was.
bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got good ones.
Oh, yes, yes, multi-talented. Well, Don, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Much continued success. Once again, tell us about the music. Where could they find it?
Sure. Well, the CD that was out for some years, several years now, is called "The Mostly Swinging,"
Mhm.
and it's on iTunes and Amazon. And then the next one coming out, we haven't figured out the title yet. So, but there is a single from it called "Ooh Baby Baby," OOO. If you look it up, it's not. So the spelling has to be right. OOO, Ooh Baby Baby,
Okay.
under Donnie Most on iTunes and Amazon. And then the rest of that CD hopefully will come out this summer.
Okay. And like you say, movies might be on the horizon. You're directing,
Yes.
working on a bunch of projects. So we're just going to sit back and be looking for Donnie Most.
Uh, yeah, and check out Lost Heart on Amazon Prime, and MBF, Man's Best Friend, is another interesting independent film I did recently. That's on Amazon.
Well, Don, thank you for being here. It was an honor.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Mark.